Brothers and sisters, today I want to speak to your heart. I want to speak about something that may seem small, but it has eternal weight, the way we dress when we come before God at Holy Mass. This isn't about fashion. This isn't about looking perfect. This is about reverence, love, and what we believe. If we believe that God himself is truly present, then what we wear can either honor that truth or contradict it. So let me give you 6 key points that we need to remember before you ever open your mouth to sing, to pray, to respond. Your clothing has already made a statement, and this is where everything begins, because when we walk into the presence of God, even before we kneel, even before we speak, our very appearance is a witness to what we believe. What you choose to wear to Holy Mass says something very deep about your heart. If we believe with all our hearts that this is the house of God, the place where heaven opens and Jesus himself becomes present on the altar, then our clothing should say, I came prepared, I came to honor him, I came aware of the sacred. Too often we forget that before the first hymn, before the first prayer, our garments are already a prayer or a distraction. Think about it for a moment. If someone walked into a royal wedding or into a courtroom with clothes that said, I just came from the gym, from the beach, from my bed, and it doesn't really matter, we would all see it as a sign of not understanding the moment. And yet, sometimes we come into the greatest moment in the universe, the representation of the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, and we dress like we are doing something casual. Mass is not casual. It is Calvary. It is not a club, not a concert, not a coffee shop. It is the place where Jesus pours out his blood again for you and for me. If you could stand physically at Calvary, at the foot of the cross next to Mary and John, what would you wear? Would you want to appear careless or to appear ready, awake, reverent? That is the image you must carry every single time you prepare yourself for the Holy Mass. And this isn't about impressing anyone. It isn't about fashion. It's about making sure that what you wear doesn't speak louder than the Eucharist. Because if our clothing distracts someone else, if it makes them look at us rather than at Jesus, we have become a stumbling block for their prayer. Love asks us to think of others, and love even shows up in the way we present ourselves. Clothing can be a sign of respect, of humility, of devotion. Our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, and the way we clothe them should make that visible. The world tells us that freedom means wearing whatever we want, but true freedom comes from honoring what is holy and choosing what gives glory to God rather than ourselves. Ask yourself, does what I'm wearing draw attention to me, or does it allow me and others to focus on him? The Mass is the wedding banquet of the Lamb, and at every wedding feast, every bride and guest prepares with care, not to show off, but to honor the occasion. If you were invited to stand before a king, you would prepare yourself, you would come ready. When you walk into the Mass, you are walking into the throne room of the King of Kings. External reverence is not empty, it shapes your heart. God sees the heart, yes, but the heart shows on the outside. So let your clothing say, I know where I am. I know who is here. I came to worship him with my whole self. Never let your garment speak of carelessness, vanity, or disrespect. Instead, let it preach reverence before you say a single word. The clothing we choose has already declared something about what is in our hearts. If we truly believe that this is not an ordinary room, not a casual gathering, but the very house of God where heaven and earth meet, then everything about us, including how we dress, must reflect that belief. When you walk into Mass, think of it as stepping into a sacred encounter. This is the place where Jesus Christ, the Son of God, offers himself again for you, where his sacrifice becomes present on the altar. And yet, how often do we come into this moment without thinking, as if we are just dropping by a store or stopping at a cafe? Our culture has taught us to think casual equals comfortable and comfortable equals good, but the Mass is not casual. It is Calvary. At every Mass, we stand at the foot of the cross with Mary, John, and the saints. We stand in the presence of the one who gave his life for us. Imagine for a moment if you were actually there at Calvary, right in front of the crucified Christ. Would you dress like you do when you are running errands? Would you come without a second thought? If the King of Heaven invited you to his table, would you not take a moment to prepare yourself? We do not need expensive clothes, but we do need clothes that speak of reverence, of care, of readiness. What you wear is not about fashion or judgment. It is about communicating to God and to everyone around you that you know where you are and who is here. That garment says something even before you bow, kneel, or whisper a prayer. The way we dress at Mass does not just affect us personally, it has an impact on those around us. When we choose garments that are distracting, immodest, or overly casual, we may unintentionally draw attention away from the Eucharist. Instead of people being able to fix their gaze on Jesus, they are tempted to notice us. Love calls us to think of others and to ask, will what I am wearing help someone else pray, or will it make it harder? The Mass is not just a service, it is a wedding feast. The scriptures call it the wedding banquet of the Lamb, and when you come into this place, you are stepping into that heavenly feast. If you were invited to a royal wedding on earth, you would prepare. You would be careful not to show up looking careless, because you know the occasion matters. And if you would do that for an earthly king or queen, why not for the King of Kings? Dressing for Mass is not about looking important. It is about saying with your whole self, I came ready to give God the honor he deserves. The way you present yourself on the outside can form what is on the inside. God does see the heart, but the heart is shaped by what we do. So come to Mass with clothing that reflects humility, reverence, and awareness of the sacred. Never let your garment speak of carelessness, vanity, or disrespect. Let it speak of worship. Let it say, without a word, that you know where you are, that you believe who is here, and that you came with love. It says what we think about this place, who we think is here, and how much it matters to us. The Mass is not an ordinary event, and the church is not an ordinary building. It is the place where heaven and earth meet, where God himself becomes present on the altar. If we believe this with all our hearts, then the way we dress should make that belief visible. Too often, we think only of comfort and convenience, and we walk into the presence of the King of Kings dressed as if we are stepping into something casual and common. But Mass is not casual. Mass is Calvary. At every single Mass, we are mystically transported to the foot of the cross, and Christ's sacrifice is made present again. If you could see him there, if you could see Mary and John standing in sorrow at Calvary, would you arrive thoughtlessly? Would you appear before the cross with the same carelessness as you might have on an ordinary day? No. You would prepare yourself because this moment matters infinitely more than any other. This is why our clothing is never just about us. It also affects the people around us. What we wear can either help others to enter into prayer, or it can pull their attention away from God. If our clothing is sloppy, immodest, or distracting, someone else who came longing to meet Jesus may have their heart pulled in a different direction. Out of love, we have to ask, will what I am wearing today help others to stay focused on him? Or will it be a stumbling block? We don't have to be wealthy. We don't have to be fancy. But we do have to be thoughtful. To wear something that says, I care about being here, is not about pride, it's about humility. It's a way of saying, I know I am not the focus here. He is. Think about how we prepare for other events. If we were invited to a wedding, to meet someone we deeply respect, or to a royal ceremony, we would not hesitate to prepare ourselves outwardly. We would come with honor and attention, not because the clothes themselves matter, but because the moment matters. The Mass is a wedding banquet, the wedding feast of the Lamb. And when we are here, we are standing in the presence of the King himself. There is another truth we cannot forget. God does look at the heart, but what is in the heart always shows itself on the outside. External reverence is not empty or fake. It shapes the soul. When we come to Mass dressed with care and thought, it becomes a reminder to our own hearts that something sacred is happening here. It helps us step out of the ordinary routine of our week and into the extraordinary mystery of what God is doing. Your garment can be a prayer. It can say without any words, I came to worship. I came to honor you with all that I am. So never allow your clothing to be careless, vain, or disrespectful. Let what you wear become part of your offering. Let it say that you know where you are, that you know who is present, and that with every part of yourself, even the way you dress, you came to give God glory or pray. Before you whisper a single word, before the choir begins, your very presence speaks. The clothing you choose says something about what you believe is happening here. Mass is not an ordinary gathering. This is the place where heaven opens, where God comes down, where bread and wine are transformed into the very body and blood of Christ. If you truly believe that, everything about the way you prepare for Mass, including how you dress, should reflect that. Think of this moment not as something casual, but as something sacred. Too often, we approach the church like we approach any other building, forgetting that here we walk into a space where the eternal meets the earthly. The way we present ourselves is one of the first signs that we know this is holy ground, not a social event or a routine. If you could see with your own eyes what really happens at the altar, it would take your breath away. Every Mass is Calvary. It is not a reenactment, it is the same sacrifice made present before us. Imagine standing at the foot of the cross with Mary and John. Would you arrive without preparation? Would you dress as if you had just been passing by? You wouldn't. You would stop, you would think, you would choose what says, I know where I am. That is why when you come to Mass, you are called to come ready inside and out. God does not ask for expensive garments. He asks for a heart that reveres him. And that reverence is shown in the care you take even in the little things like what you wear. It's also true that what we wear is not just about ourselves, it's about everyone else around us. Someone has come to Mass with a heavy heart, longing to meet Jesus in the Eucharist. If my clothing is careless, if it is immodest or distracting, I can pull that person's focus away from the one they came to see. Love always asks us to think of others. Clothing that honors the sacred is a gift not just to God, but to our brothers and sisters who came to pray. In a world where almost everything is casual, it is easy to forget that reverence requires intention. You don't need a new wardrobe. You need to pause and ask, does what I am wearing allow me and others to see Him, or does it make me the center? Think about how we treat other important events in our lives. When we are invited to a wedding, we do not show up sloppy. When we are about to meet someone we love and respect, we take care to be ready. How much more should we prepare when we come to the wedding feast of the Lamb, when we stand before the King of Kings? Every act of care becomes a way of saying, I came to honor you. Even the simplest clothing, chosen with intention, can say to God, you matter more than my comfort or my habits. And when you come with that awareness, your very presence, even without a word, becomes a prayer. Your garment becomes a sign of your faith. Never let what you wear speak of vanity or disrespect. Let it speak of love. Let it remind you, and everyone who sees you, that you know exactly who is present and that you came to give Him glory, the hymns or the readings. Before a single word leaves your mouth, the way you carry yourself, the way you present yourself, and even the clothing you wear has already given witness to what you believe. The place you have entered is not just another hall or a room where people gather. It is the very dwelling of the living God, the meeting point of heaven and earth. If you truly believe that the Lord of the universe is present, then everything about you, even down to how you dress, becomes a part of your worship. Your clothing is like a silent statement saying, I know where I am. I know who is here. At every Mass, something extraordinary takes place. We stand at the very foot of the cross. It is not a performance or a symbolic gesture. It is the real sacrifice of Jesus Christ made present again. And when you imagine yourself at Calvary, looking up at Christ crucified, what picture comes to your mind? Would you come there with no thought or preparation? Would you show up as though it didn't matter? In the same way, when you prepare for Mass, your heart and even your outward preparation say to God, this moment is holy to me. It does not require expensive clothes, but it does require an awareness of the sacred. To come unprepared is to forget the reality of what is happening. And it is not just about what happens between you and God. The way you dress also affects others. Maybe there is someone next to you who has come to Mass with a heavy heart, looking for peace and for God's voice. If what you wear is careless, distracting, or immodest, you can unintentionally become an obstacle to that person's prayer. Love calls us to be aware not only of our own comfort, but of our impact on others. What we choose to wear can either help to create an atmosphere of reverence and peace, or it can become a source of distraction. This is why reverence is always expressed through care. Think for a moment about other important events in life. When someone invites you to a wedding, you prepare. When you have an appointment to meet someone you respect, you take time to be ready. How much more important is it when you are coming into the presence of the King of Kings? The Mass is the wedding feast of the Lamb, a heavenly celebration, and our presence there should say with our whole selves, I came ready to honor this moment. We do not need to try to impress anyone, but we do need to let our choices express that we know what is happening. And there is a deeper truth to all of this. While it is true that God sees the heart, the outside can shape what is on the inside. Dressing thoughtfully for Mass forms a habit of reverence, a reminder to ourselves that this hour is not like any other hour of the week. It is a time to step away from the ordinary and into the extraordinary. Even before we say a word, our clothing can become a prayer, a silent witness that we came to worship. Never let your garment speak of vanity or carelessness. Let it speak of honor. Let it tell the truth that you know who is here and that you came with love. It tells God and everyone else in that sacred place what you believe about where you are. If this is the house of God, if this is the place where heaven touches earth, then what you wear should not be chosen thoughtlessly. Even something so small becomes a silent way of saying, I came here knowing this is holy ground. Every Mass is not just a service, it is the representation of Calvary. The same sacrifice that happened 2,000 years ago on the cross is made present right in front of you. If you could open your eyes and see the reality, you would see yourself standing at the foot of the cross next to Mary and John. Picture that moment and ask yourself, would you come unprepared? Would you stand at the cross as though nothing extraordinary was happening? The Mass is that moment, and when we prepare ourselves, even outwardly, it is a way of saying, I know what is happening here. It is not about wealth or fashion. It is about reverence. What we wear also affects the people around us. The Mass is a place where souls come searching for Jesus, often carrying heavy burdens. If the clothing we choose is distracting, immodest, or careless, it has the power to pull someone else's eyes and mind away from the altar and away from the presence of Christ. In that moment, we have made ourselves the center instead of Him. Love calls us to consider others. Even in something so simple as what we wear, we are asked to think about the needs of our brothers and sisters who came to pray. This is why intention matters. When we prepare for a wedding or an important meeting, we take the time to present ourselves with care. We do it not because clothing is the main thing, but because the event is important. The Mass is the wedding feast of the Lamb. You are walking into a banquet in the presence of the King of Kings. It is right and good that our appearance reflects that. We may not have perfect clothes, but we can always have a heart that says, this is different. This moment matters. And there is something else at work here, something deeper. God does see the heart, but the way we act on the outside forms what happens on the inside. When we dress thoughtfully and reverently for Mass, it becomes a kind of prayer. It shifts our mind and heart into a posture of worship. The small act of preparing yourself teaches your own soul that what is about to happen is unlike anything else in the world. This hour is sacred, so I will treat it as sacred. So let your clothing, even before your words, be a witness. Let it say without speaking that you know where you are, that you know who is present, and that you came ready to love and honor Him. Never let carelessness, vanity, or disrespect be your garment. Instead, let reverence be seen in every choice, so that even your clothing preaches, this is holy ground, and I came prepared,